About regarding Jeff Hardy.
Oh, good. I have a
Obviously,
lot to
the episode is
say.
called "These Rebel Hearts," and a lot of I don't know, maybe anti-establishment wrestlers did I wouldn't say get the boot except for this guy named Jeff Hardy. Thank you to the Matt Man for his great graphic, but Jeff Hardy was for most people's standpoints unexpectedly released from WWE. Now, Kay, I'm going to leave this to you because I know, one, this is your thing, and you probably have a lot more information about the circumstances surrounding Jeff Hardy's unexpected release. So, what do you know?
Okay, so I believe he got released the day after AEW, right?
Something like that, yes.
I, so I was in very much an emotional tailspin for having seen CM Punk, and then in our Wrestle Addict Radio Patreon chat, cheap plug, if you subscribe, you get this news first. It broke in the Patreon chat that Jeff Hardy was released, and I did not take it
Yeah,
well.
you had a bad day.
I had a very bad day, but as I initially was just upset, but then I did a lot of digging, and I have been obsessively digging for days. So a couple days prior to this, Jeff was on a live event in, I believe, Texas. He was in a tag match with Xavier Woods, Drew, and the Bloodline.
Ooh.
So Jeff appeared sluggish during the match. He was holding his stomach, and he was moving like he just was not moving like he normally does.
Okay.
At one point, like, he takes a bump and he just, like, collapses. And then he rolls out of the ring and just goes into the crowd and dips in the middle of the match
Oh.
and does not come back.
Okay.
Jeff got pulled from the tour. That
Dude.
was, I think, that was
Sorry, go ahead.
the Saturday before we went to AEW.
Gotcha. Was he replacing that
So
match by
almost a
somebody?
Yes, Rey Mysterio replaced him for the rest of the tour in that
Okay.
match. And they won the match. So, like, apparently Drew was doing the Jeff Hardy dance, trying to be like, I guess almost to try to, like, acknowledge that, like, Jeff wasn't there, because it was very confusing. But, and I immediately, because I'm a psycho, I cross-referenced this with Victory Road. I watched them back to back, and he is not moving like he's fucked up and on drugs or drinking. So the day that video came out, the IWC went off saying that Jeff Hardy's on drugs again. Jeff Hardy has relapsed. It's such a shame. Jeff needs to retire. Once an addict. Like, a lot of really disgusting anti-addiction talk. And as somebody that is also an addict and is also in recovery, I take serious offense to that, because a lot of the dialogue surrounding Jeff Hardy is very harmful. You know, Jeff Hardy is a fucking legend, and he gets viewed as a liability more than a legend because of a match that was 10 years ago and a DUI that was several years ago at this point.
Okay, I wonder if you went back to those same people's social medias to the 6 weeks ago, what were they saying about John Moxley? Probably the exact opposite. We're saying, we love you, John. Get better soon. Like, you're
Get
doing
the help
right
you
thing,
deserve. It's true,
right?
though.
I bet they are, because I mean that's not just a wrestling problem. That's just a social media problem. And regardless, that people are so fucking two-faced and fake. And yeah, there is no evidence that this was related to his issues. Now, I don't know how true this is, but I saw something.
Oh, I have more info. I wasn't done.
That WWE offered him help, and he said
He
no.
was offered rehab.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
They offered him rehab, and he said no, and then he got released. So I found this out yesterday because Jeff has sort of spoken.
He was on something with his brother Matt.
He was on Matt's Twitch.
Yeah.
So Jeff is doing a bunch of concerts in the Midwest within the next couple of weeks. He's on like a mini tour for his music project. So he was promoting that. He had mentioned that he was listening to, I think, Release Me by Wilson Phillips, which, lol. And he didn't say anything about it himself. Matt was saying that Jeff is in the healthiest, best place that he's ever seen him in, that Jeff is not drinking, Jeff is not using pills. He said they drug tested Jeff at that show.
Okay. We don't know what the results were, obviously.
Yeah, but Matt said like that the results will come back clean.
Okay.
And that he feels that WWE was very hasty in releasing him.
It's interesting. I mean, cause if I can speak for not if I can speak for WWE, but more so like it's a hard line to toe these days. Because you have it's unfortunate that it using history against, but you have somebody who is is an addict, that you've given chances to before. And I think a lot of the times when you're a company of that size and status, you don't want any bad marks on you.
Not only
Yeah.
that, like if a company like WWE, who by the way paid for John Moxley's rehab, that was floating out there, which weird, but I'm not gonna shit on good news. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad that they paid for it. And I'm glad they take care of the talent even though they're not there anymore. Makes me beg why AEW didn't pay for it, but whatever. It's not important. But if WWE felt Jeff Hardy needed rehab and he said no, I think the release is valid. I think the release is fair. Now, does Jeff need rehab? Is he off the wagon? I don't know. I have no idea. I hope he isn't, and if he does, I hope he gets the help he needs. But I'm not going to judge the man one way or the other because I just don't have enough information.
Yeah.
But if WWE feels like he needed help and they offered it and he said no, I think I would have released him. I definitely would have released him.
Okay, but what's really frustrating is they didn't wait for for results of a drug test to offer him rehab, and to offer an addict rehab when they're sober because they were unwell during a match. It's fucking gross. And like honestly, for that, WWE should be a little ashamed of themselves because it's not fair to hold that over Jeff's head. And also, not only do they hold it over his head in real life, they're still using it in storylines.
What do you mean?
Well, fucking his entire feud with Sheamus.
Oh, but that was years ago. I thought you meant they're still using it now.
Now that was what, a year
or two
ago? I think
ago.
it was 2020.
Yeah.
2020. Like,
which we talked about that on this podcast, and me and Kay differ. I mean, if they're two guys, if they both of them are fine with it and it's respectful, I'm cool with that. I think it's good television. But I understand, especially for an addict, it's testy.
Yeah.
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 So, and honestly, IWC, I'm coming for you.
You can go fuck yourself, IWC.
You really can, because you immediately assume that Jeff Hardy is on drugs, using again, that he was clearly fucked up. Just because you watch wrestling a couple hours a week does not mean you know anything. You listen to motherfucker JD, who Baron Corbin shat on publicly because
wow, you were lowest of the low. Baron Corbin shits on you.
Yeah, Baron Corbin said that JD from New York is one of the dumbest people out there because he is spinning a narrative that Jeff Hardy is pretending to act like he relapsed to be released.
That's fucking absurd.
That is wild.
You would just ask for your release. And Jeff Hardy said this publicly. He wants a match with Roman Reigns. He wanted to be in that title picture.
We were going to get that match with Roman Reigns.
That was scheduled to happen. Rumor has it around February.
Yeah,
which I would love to see that match.
Yeah,
right? Like when they brought him back, it was rumored he was going to get a title run. Now he probably didn't because of his history with issues. He could be quote unquote unreliable. And is that fair or not? That's a whole different conversation. But just to assume that he was off the wagon, I think is insanely fucked up. I think it's possible, but I don't know. I don't know the guy.
I have not seen the video either, so I couldn't make a judgment.
I haven't seen enough to say he hasn't or he has.
The video to me looks like he either had like his stomach, because he's holding his stomach.
Okay.
So it gave me either stomach problems or like rib breathing kind of problems, even appendix.
Or maybe he had to take a really, really rough shit. Let's be real here.
That too, and like
he had the runs.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't want to.
You take one bump and it's all out there. Like it could have been like life or death.
Down his fucking jeans.
But like. Matt said that it's Jeff's story to tell, and Jeff will talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Jeff is going to talk about it in March.
When the 90 days are up, yes.
Yeah. So, by the way, he's going to be a free agent 2 days after Revolution. Just throwing that out there.
It is possible. I mean, there's a
But
lot of things to consider
another,
here.
but this is the thing. Like, I'm not here. Like, I eventually would love to see Jeff wrestle in AEW, but that's not a priority right now. And the internet community can fuck themselves because the same people that are shitting on Jeff Hardy for being unreliable are saying that he's going over to AEW. He's opening the door. Hardy Boys against the Young Bucks, like, and
Well,
fantasy booking him
that's
already.
just good. That's just good marketing on his part. He should be teasing it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just the right thing to do as a wrestler.
No, I mean the assholes in the IWC that are already fantasy booking him, and
Yeah.
when that might not be something he might want to do like right away. Like, Jeff is getting older, and we know that Jeff is approaching his last run.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes.
he wants a minute.
Well, the IWC has been very weird recently too. Like, cause I know we're going to talk about Kevin Owens, but they got mad at Kevin Owens for re-signing with WWE.
I can't with them.
Oh please! I had some thoughts about that, but we'll talk about that. But let's wrap up Jeff real quick. You know,
He deserves his flowers.
no, Jeff does deserve his flowers,
And I hope he's okay.
I honestly was.
Because getting fired is traumatic.
Yeah, oh yes, it is. I honestly wasn't on the Jeff train until Survivor Series. I was like, oh, this motherfucker still got it.
Yeah, he still got it. He
Yeah.
turned it on. He did a great performance. I honestly thought he was going to win.
Yeah.
And I honestly think he should have won.
He should have won.
Yeah.
That was the most exhilarated I've ever felt live in a wrestling event in my entire life. Y'all saw me.
You saw CM Punk twice before that.
Exactly. But you know, from WWE's standpoint, if they feel that this is something that is necessary for them to validate that you are not a liability, as in offering, giving, say, maybe you should do rehab, and then he denies it from a business standpoint and a business standpoint only, that tells them, this could be a potential risk and a liability. It's better to cut our losses now. Not saying it's the right thing to do, but that's the thought process in mind.
I think it's justified, especially because if Jeff ever does need rehab, he knows that the offer is always on the table for WWE to help him.
Yeah. They've helped out so many people before.
That doesn't mean I think he had issues or he needs rehab, but I do think that if WWE thinks he needed rehab, then the release is justifiable.
Yeah. And also with drug, if we got drug tested on the spot, those drug tests come back pretty instantaneously. You're not waiting days for that thing to be released. So they know something, or somebody knows something. It's been like over almost 2 weeks now. Somebody knows what the results of that piss test or whatever it was is.
I think he might be unwell, like, physically.
Or mentally.
Or mentally. We don't. Here's the thing: we don't know what the rehab was for. We're assuming it's drug and alcohol rehab. That's not. There's tons of rehab that you can go to. It's not drug and alcohol related.
Right?
That is true.
They could have wanted to go inpatient because he's thinking of hurting himself. Like, you don't know.
Yeah. You know, we don't know if they needed him to go to like a mental health facility for some sort of mental rehab or maybe even just physical therapy rehab. You know, maybe he's hurt.
Matt straight up has said that, like, mentally and stuff, Jeff is the most, like, sound and, like, the best he's ever been.
Yeah, and I watched his interview with Austin, and I believe it. I do. Like, if you told me Jeff Hardy was, like, fell off the wagon and was using again, I'd be like, I don't believe you. I think I just don't believe it.
I literally spoke to him about it.
I remember.
Like, sober.
Yeah.
Like, the minute that video came out of him, I knew it was not drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. You know,
like, fuck anybody who assumes, because that's really shitty.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
You should not
block me if you don't agree.
Yeah, no, you should not assume. But I do, you know, for the therapist in me, also has to make, you know, always be aware there is a cycle here when it comes to recovery. You know, and part of that, I know this isn't for UK, and this is for the populace. And part of that cycle is relapse, and relapse is a real thing that happens. That's part of the road to recovery, because you don't get it in the first shot all the time. And some people relapse multiple times. That happens. We're not saying Jeff relapsed. We're saying that relapse is a part of the recovery process, and it's an ongoing part of the recovery process. And the thought about it is...
there's no shame in relapsing if you do.
Exactly.
Like, that is a part of
No,
recovery.
absolutely not. Absolutely
Even
not.
if Jeff relapsed, like, I would never be, like, upset at him for it. Like, it's a part of being an addict.
Yeah. The thought process is the more you go through the cycle, the further between relapses you get.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was so we didn't get to really talk about Moxie going to rehab that much.
We didn't. I don't remember.
But I was so surprised by how supportive, not just the fans, that was to be expected, but how AEW as a company handled it publicly on TV.
Yes.
Like, WWE just wouldn't talk about it. Like, CM Punk came out and cut a 5-minute promo just on John Moxley going to rehab.
Yes.
And I was like, that's a big shift societally on how people view addicts in rehab. And I was just like, honestly, for someone who doesn't struggle with rehab or issues and addiction like that, it was very refreshing.
Yeah.
It was.
I agree.
It was. And it's like, well, now we're back at this again.
Yeah.
Right? It's just right back to the bullshit. But I hope Jeff Hardy gets the help he needs if he needs it. And if he doesn't, fuck everyone else. I hope he continues on his path. But, I was listening to a podcast today and specifically on recovery that was just like, I never thought about. He's like, you don't only got to look out for the low points. You got to look out for the high points as well. Now it's like,
when you think you're too good, when you think you're so good, you think you're invincible again.
Yeah.
So there's something in recovery. It's usually in the early stages of recovery, but I think it's an attitude that can come as you're longer in your sobriety. It's called the pink cloud.
Okay.
Where you're like so into your sobriety and like you cannot be tarnished. Like nothing will deter you, and like it's like a hubris sort of you. You're fucking real cocky about it.
Yeah.
And I have found, because I have been there, I have tried getting sober before where I'm at right now. Like I'm 4.5 years now, but I used to not be able to stay sober longer than 3 months. And the 3-month mark is be like, I'm the shit. I got this. I have it under control. And then I would feel like, oh, I can have a glass of wine. And then 1 glass of wine becomes 2, becomes a bottle with 8 shots.
Yeah.
So the highs are just as important to monitor as your lows.
Absolutely. We hope, like I said, we hope Jeff gets the help if he needs it, and we just hope Jeff's in a good place. But I will say, it was great to see a crowd go crazy for Jeff Hardy again, because I don't think I ever experienced that, even in the height of the Attitude Era, like being there in person.
You were at his Mania return.
Yeah, but like, that was because
what happened since.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say this.
Hey man, Brooklyn was a great crowd at the Survivor Series. I didn't get to talk about that, but we were a fantastic crowd. If I can pat myself on the back.
Yeah,
we had fun.
The crazy thing about Jeff Hardy is, before you've been doing this show, is that yesterday, this is all over Twitter too. Yesterday was the 13-year anniversary of Jeff Hardy winning the world title for the first time.
Goddamn right it was.
Pretty crazy stuff, but.